right, so now we're going to talk about some model magic. Both of these were made with model magic. Like this one was a first example that I did, and this has watercolor and tempera paint on top. This one I just made today. This one is still really sticky. You can tell it still even wants to stick to the paper that I have here. So I just have to be careful and make sure, because if they stick, it'll try to pull on the bottom of it. But it's still pretty fragile. Okay, it's real soft. So he's not ready to be painted yet. So for our class, we're gonna be adding the color later. They're gonna be white, and we're gonna start adding color later. I think we'll do some watercolor, and then maybe we'll do some details with some neon and some glitter. We'll have a lot of fun with this, but I wanna make sure that we get all the white space covered. So today, let's go ahead and get started with our model magic demo. I'm gonna slide this over. This little card right here is a piece of little index card, kind of made of cardstock. What you're gonna wanna do, this is where he's gonna get stored, so I'm just doing a little waffle fold, a little fan fold back and forth, because you want it to be able to dry. And so this little stand right here is gonna allow air to flow underneath of your model magic. It's also a good place to write your name. Mrs. Hopkins, make sure I spell it right. I know my name. And I would just put my class code, so you can put your 5 dash whatever your teacher's name is. I'll just go ahead and put a B. All right, for maybe Miss Brown's class. All right, here we go. So your model magic comes to you in a paper like this. That's a fun sound, isn't it? I can't wait for that sound to be over. So you're gonna cut that thing open. Make sure that you are not cutting the model magic when you're opening it, and then you'll be able to pull it the rest of the way. It's gonna come out, it kind of always reminds me of like a block of like butter or something. It's so soft. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide it up into 3 parts. Now, I've seen this done many times. I agree, the 3-part method is pretty much foolproof. That means you're gonna have some success. So dividing it up into thirds, okay? If we were gonna do half, it might be right about here, but I'm gonna say thirds, okay? So I'm gonna guess about here and here are my thirds. So you can use your scissors to cut it really easily. 1, 2, 3, okay? You can just set those to the side. Please don't stick them down into the table, because you'll see once you stick model magic on something, it doesn't really wanna come up. And that's gonna be today's quick lesson, is that model magic, once you start sticking it to other model magic, it wants to stick to it. So at that point, you kind of have to start all the way over if you wanna pull something apart. So start with making kind of a ball shape, okay, a little sphere. You're gonna roll that model magic, okay? And model magic is a lot stickier than regular clay, in my opinion. Kind of reminds me of sticky tack. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna kind of shape it into like an oval, kind of squish it a little bit, and then you can kind of make it flat like a pancake. If you squish it on the table, it's a good way to see how sticky it can be. I make it kind of about the same size as my palm of my hand, and I'm gonna lay it down, okay? That's gonna be my base. You can make it bigger if you want to, but it's up to you, okay? I'm gonna grab one of my dragon eyes from over here. We'll go ahead and do a warm color dragon eye. And I'm just gonna stick it down in here. I can always pull this back up if I didn't get it centered exactly as I want, but this one will just be fine. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab another chunk of my model magic, and we're gonna make an eyelid. I'm gonna go above and below, okay? So I'm gonna split this into 2. I could pull it apart with my fingers, or I could cut it with my scissors. I'm gonna roll this into just a short little coil, and I'm gonna flatten it out. You can flatten it in your fingers, or you can flatten it in your thumbs, but this is gonna be an eyelid here. I'm gonna lay it down, and I'm gonna kind of press into the bottom piece of model magic, and you can add a little texture here if you want to, kind of give it an edge. It's up to you, but it's gonna be the top eyelid. This is gonna be the bottom eyelid. So what we're doing is we're just hiding part of that glass just a little bit, just obscuring it a little bit. You can pinch that together if you want to. It's up to you. Okay. So once you have this shape, this is kind of the basic shape I like to start with. You can flatten it out if you want a little bit more surface area to work with. Okay. Make sure that you can still pick it up off the table, because by this point mine's wanting to stick really well. I'm gonna close it up a little bit. All right, you can see how we have the top covered a little and the bottom covered a little bit. And I'm just smoothing as I go. It's pretty forgiving. And now it's time to add some details. That's what this extra piece is for. So one of the first things that I'm gonna show you is how to do a little coil. So I'm gonna roll out, maybe in kindergarten you called it a snake, but the proper term is a coil, a long tube, okay? And we're hand rolling it. For clay, they have different machines like extruders that you can actually put clay down into, and you can actually have the clay shoot out in one long tube, which is awesome. It saves you a lot of work. Maybe you remember using an extruder with the Play-Doh you had as a little kid. So you can actually do it by hand, which is what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna just add a little twist to this one. Just a little fun decoration. And I can pull it longer if I want to. It's up to you. Twist this around. And now I'm gonna speed up the video and add all the fun details that you're gonna love.
Add whatever you want to your dragon eye. If you want scales, add scales. If you want to use a pencil to poke some holes for a pattern, do it. Curls, any texture you want for your dragon eye around the eye to make the skin really stand out and make it marvelous.
All right, so there's my dragon eye, all finished with the Model Magic. So I have to be really careful when I pick him up. I'm gonna grab this little guy that we made, this little support, and I'm just gonna lay him out. Now it's a lot heavier than the one I did a practice on because this is a lot smaller of an eye. This one's a lot heavier, but yeah, we can just check it out.
And now we're going to use watercolor paint.
All right, so what we're gonna be doing, boys and girls, is we are going to be painting these, and I have found watercolor to be my favorite technique, okay? And I can show you other techniques if you want a really nice gray. I have found the watered down Bingo Dauber ink, which is India ink, has been real nice. But I'm gonna do a cool color dragon eye because it's going to really contrast with the warm color inside of the glass part of the eye. So the skin is gonna be the contrasting color. So I'm gonna use these watercolors and I'm going to wet down, wake them up, okay? So I'm gonna add a little bit of this turquoise blue in here. I just think that it's gonna give you the best coloring. Now mine, I have to be real careful because my Model Magic is still pretty pliable and flexible, meaning I just finished with this, so it's not super dry, yet you're gonna see that it does take color really well. And so I would just encourage you guys to be careful. We will do this coloring process on the last day of the project. So we'll be adding the watercolor on that last day. We could have added color as we went along by using some markers, and some classes may do that if we run into scheduling issues, okay? So I just gotta be careful with this one so I don't damage part of that. I found it really cool if you're adding color with them as you're going, because you can use one of those coils, you can twist two coils together with two different colors, which would be really hard to paint now. So some classes will absolutely do that. All right, I'm gonna grab some other blue, some more of that indigo, darker blue in here. Okay, and I'll use some violet as well. I'll just paint this up for you.
So I'm using those cool colors that we talked about, blues and the turquoise, and even a little bit of indigo and violet. I'm being really careful. Even though I'm using a flat brush, you may have a flat brush or a round. Get all the white space that you can. You're gonna wanna pick your piece of Model Magic up so you can get all the different edges. Be really careful. A lot of you will ask me, can I use both warm and cool colors, Mrs. Hopkins? My answer will be yes, but just be careful and be mindful of what you're choosing. We don't wanna just be mixing colors together because if you mix too many, you might end up with brown. So be careful and really think about your color choice when you guys are doing this project today.
So just make sure that you get all the surfaces covered, okay? If it gets on the eye, don't worry about it. On the glass part, it's okay. It's just watercolor paint. And there's no reason we couldn't do watercolor paint on top of some marker, but it might mess with your colors a little bit. So we may end up doing both, depending on what our schedules allow for us. All right? So just have fun with it. I would say stick with a color palette that's going to complement your eye. So I think this one looks really awesome because of the warm and orange and yellow colors that you see, that I've got these really cool blues and turquoises. And I'm gonna have a little bit more fun and just kind of add some purple wherever I feel. But I like adding the color after the fact.
As you can see, I'm adding a little bit more color, but I'm thinking about colors that will look great and not look muddy. I want them to complement each other and make both parts of my eye look great. I had a warm color, but if you had a cool color like this green one that I'm about to show you, you might be thinking about a warm color palette. So what you're seeing is how to add the color to the white Model Magic while you are sculpting. So we're using the Crayola regular markers, just like you guys have. I would say stick with warm colors or stick with cool, and you color right on the Model Magic and mix with your hands. If you do that, you can take two colors and twist them or braid them together like I did in the example. And if you do this step, you can skip the watercolor paint, or you can even add watercolor paint later. It's totally up to you. I can't wait to see how your dragon eyes turn out. Have fun, everyone!